Untap, upkeep, and welcome back to the channel if you've been here before. If you haven't, then please, by all means, sit down, relax, and enjoy our show today. As you can see, we've done something new. You can actually see me and you can actually interact a little bit better and put face to voice. I know it's terrifying. Sorry. You'll get over it eventually, maybe. Or maybe not. Eh. So for today, we will do another dive into my collection of decks for the budget decks that everybody seems to really get a kick out of. And to do that, we're going to use my favorite thing in the world, our one and only Moxfield. They are not a sponsor, but maybe one day they will be. One can hope, right? So I'm just going to click on my profile here. We're going to scroll on down through all of these crazy wild decks. And if you see one you want a deck video about, comment. Let me know. So, which one do we want to do today? I think I have one in mind. This one. So, this is my Linden budget life game deck, where everything has to be $1 or less in this build. It's pretty janky, pretty simple. As you can see down here, the price is only $32 when you round it up, and it's kind of just your typical mono white life game scenario. It's not as powerful as it could be if we had a little bit more wider range to some budget cards. Uh, First thing I can think of off the top of my head is Aetherflux Reservoir. Wonderful 4-drop artifact. Whenever you for every time you play a spell, you gain a life. Basically, for every spell you've played that turn. So if you play one card, you gain 1 life. You play 2 cards in that same turn, you're going to gain 2 more life, and so on and so on. It snowballs out of control, and it's just bad for your opponent. Um, and that's typically a win condition. And if you haven't heard why, it's because you could pay 50 life at instant speed and 50 damage anything you want. So if you gain enough life, you can literally just sit there and be like, I have my hand on the nuke button, Mr. Bond. What shall you do? It makes things real fun for you. So without that, and uh, a few other good pieces like the very common, if you've never heard of them before, the Soul Sisters, which are just 2 creatures that both have a very similar effect. They're a wonderful 1-drop. They're like $5 a piece for a reason. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. So as you can see, they do some things. But without them, let's look at what we have here. So this is Linden, the Steadfast Queen. And as you can see, she's white, white, white for a 3/3 legendary creature human noble. She has vigilance, and whenever a white creature you control attacks, you get to gain 1 life. So we're going to be kind of an aggressive life gain deck, and we're going to see what happens with that. Moving on to our one and only copy of the Planeswalker, which at the time of the build was under $1. I can switch it to the Bloomburrow copy, and it will definitely be underneath $1, which we might as well go ahead and do because the Bloomburrow copy actually looks really cool in my opinion. Oh wow. Okay, yeah. Wait, there we go. There we go. False alarm. So this is the foil version of it, which to me it just looks absolutely wicked in foil. If you don't have it, try to get one. If I remember right, it came in the Mrs. Bloomburrow Commander Precon, and it looks really cool to me. But I'm simple like that. If you've never seen this Elspeth before, she's really good. This is Elspeth Sun's Champion. 4/6/6 for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. Pardon me. That says the following abilities. You can +1 to make 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. So for her first time out there, she can also protect herself. We at least get 3 bodies out. Her -3 is a wrath effect. You can destroy all creatures of power 4 or greater. We're pretty low to the ground, if I remember correctly, through this build. We do have some lords or other ways to pump some things, but generally we're pretty low to the ground. So we have a couple of things that may be a concern, but not really. And then ultimately we have the -7 if we get there, which is you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying. Yeah, +2/+2 was not good enough. We had to give them flying. And if you don't know an emblem, there's no way to interact with an emblem. Not removing it at least, and we've been waiting for them to make one. Hey, wizards. Chop, chop. What's with the no removal of the emblem, huh? Blackers. So if you actually do get the point to do the -7 on her, then hey, you're doing some damage. Moving on to our creatures, we have quite a bit of creatures. And of course, I have to add some dragons because I am the Buddha dragon. Of course, I need dragons in there. Why not, right? But they actually have some good reasoning. So, Ancestor Dragon here is a 6-drop dragon who has a good defense as a 6. He's a 5/6, and he has flying, of course, being a dragon. But whenever one or more creatures you control attack, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. So it's essentially a bigger dragon version of our commander. So that kind of just synergizes well. Angelic Sellsword is a flying vigilant angel mercenary who says whenever she or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you make a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. We don't, excuse me, we don't really care about that too much. All we really care about is the fact that whenever the angel attacks, if its power is 6 or greater, we get to draw a card. So all we need is 2 other creatures to enter the battlefield with this on the battlefield. Then we could tap the mercenaries to make this thing a 6/4 and be able to attack and draw a card, which if you're in mono white and especially on a budget, kind of hard to do. Angel Vitality, if you gain that much life, you gain that much +1. It gets a +2/+2 as long as we have 20 more life. Well, guess what? We're in Commander. We start off with 40 life. So this is essentially pay 3 mana for a 4/4 with flying. Archetype of Courage gives our stuff first strike and makes everybody else not be able to have first strike. So a lot of our little dinky white, 1/1 creatures, they should be able to power through. The Attended Healer is just a nice 4-drop 2/3 that whenever you gain life for the first time, each turn make a 1/1 cat creature token, and then you can pay 2 and a white for another cleric to gain lifelink until end of turn. I don't believe that ability is going to be relevant. I mean, it could be, I guess, but I don't really see it. The more important part is we can gain life at any point in the game. So if we gain a life on our turn, we make a cat. If we gain a life on my wife's turn, guess what? We gain another 1/1 cat. We gain life on Billy Joe's turn, we get a cat. Gain a life on Bobby's turn, we get a cat. Pretty sweet in my opinion. Benelash Marshal, just a basic little lord, if you will. 3 mana for a 3/3 that gives all of our creatures but him a +1/+1. The Essence Channeler is from Bloomburrow, and it's really, really sweet here. It's a nice 2-drop. As long as you've lost life this turn, it gains Flying and Vigilance. May or may not be relevant. I don't believe it's going to be a thing we really care about, especially because we have emblems from Elspeth we can use. But the important part is whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and then when it dies, put its counters on target creature you control. So even if it dies, if it has a few counters on it, something else just got huge. So, Escape Burnt Fortress is from the Assassin's Creed set, which I didn't really open very much of it. But it's a wall with Defender and Reach, so it can block things like a dragon or, any kind of thing with flying like a drake or whatever. And then other creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, you get to draw a card. Well, we're a white weenie, basically, so we're going to turn things sideways. We don't really care too much if they die. We're just trying to gain life, stay ahead of the game, and draw cards. The Amira Angel is just a nice little synergy piece. Whenever we play a land, we make a body. The Dusk Legion Duelist here is really, really sweet. He has Vigilance. It's a nice 2-drop for 2. Doesn't really synergize with a whole lot of the deck other than the fact that whenever you get 1 or more counters on this creature, you get to draw a card. It triggers only once each turn. So we have a couple of ways, if I remember correctly, to be able to put a 1/1 counter on this thing and be able to draw a card or two. If nothing else, it's a nice 2-body vigilant creature. We also have the Defiler of Faith. He's a nice 5/5 for 5 mana. Vigilance, and then we can pay either 2 life for a permanent spell uh, for 1 white mana less than the mana cost, and we can reduce it for that. So, like, the Legion Duelist would be a colorless mana and like 2 life if we wanted to. We were just trying to get bodies out. And then whenever you cast a white permanent spell, make a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So as long as we're playing an enchantment, a planeswalker, um, creature, a white permanent, then we're going to be able to poop out a body. So that's pretty nice. Uh, this is from the Outlaws of Thunderous Junction. This is the brindled bighorn. My God, I cannot speak. Has vigilance. It's a 3/4. What we really care about is if we saddle this thing, we make a 1/1 white sheep creature token, as long as it attacks while it's being saddled. So that's always nice. This is the Hasda Marshal. It's a nice 1-drop. Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, make another 1/1 soldier creature token with lifelink. Good matter. The Impassioned Operator is from the Fallout set. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to gain 1 life. Life Creed Duo, kind of the same thing. And the Lunarch Veteran also does a very similar thing. Mangar the Diplomat, thank the gods, this thing has seen another reprint and has come way down. So this is a big source of our budget card draw right here. So it has life. He has lifelink. He's a 2/4. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or a planeswalker you control, you get to draw a card. Also, whenever opponent casts their second spell each turn, you get to draw a card. So white hurts for some card draw, but that's a pretty good solid source. Mentor the Meek, if you've never seen it before, it's really basic. Whenever another creature power 2 or less enters under your control, you may pay a mana. If you do, you get to draw a card. The Steel Hellkite is just another big dumb dragon I wanted to throw into the deck, but it also has a pretty handy ability. So you could pay X mana and then destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt combat damage by the Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate only once each turn. So this means you could swing it like an elf or a goblin army, pay 0 into the X, and just board wipe them. Oops. Spirited Companion is just a nice little 2-drop that allows us to draw a card. Sad Robot, the Solemn Simulacrum, allows us to get a land, and if it dies, get to draw a card. Rumor Gatherer, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to scry 1. This always happens no matter what, as long as you have a creature enter your battlefield. But if it is the second time this ability has resolved, you may draw a card. So you only get that effect 1 time in a turn, but you will always be able to scry for every body we get to place onto the battlefield. This is Ardric, Lunarch Marshal, better known as Keyword Suit. So if you have a creature that has First Strike, Flying, Death Touch, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Skulk, Trample, and Vigilance, while he's on the battlefield and you go to combat, all of your creatures get it. So any kind of ability that our creatures have, like, our dragons have flying, all of our creatures all of a sudden have flying. So it's pretty nice. This is one of the ways we can put counters on our stuff. So whenever you gain life, you may put that many +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, and only do this once each turn. This is the Nykthos Paragon. It is a very, very sweet card in my opinion, especially in a deck like this that wants to gain a buttload of life. So we can actually combo that piece with something like this, the Sunscorched Regent, another really big dumb dragon in the deck. I know, shocker. So it is a 5-drop 4/3 with flying, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a 1/1 counter on the dragon and you gain 1 life. So with these two out, you can exponentially grow all of our creatures on the battlefield just by having these two out. Because every time somebody plays a spell, trigger, and then this triggers, and it only triggers on once of their turns, but still, it is a way to get our things bigger, and it also works for our Dusk Legion Duelist. If all three pieces are out, we could essentially draw a card on everybody's turn whenever they play a spell. Sun Titan, Fun Titan allows us to bring back anything from our graveyard with mana value 3 or less that is a permanent. Yes, that includes lands and most of our creatures. And it also includes a lot of our artifacts, enchantments, anything like that we're able to get back. All of Omens, just a nice enters the battlefield, draw a card, protect us kind of card. And then finally we have the Welcoming Vampire, so only once a turn, whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under our control, we get to draw a card. So that rounds out our very long and exhausted list of creatures. We have our sorceries down here. We have a couple of board wipes with Austere Command, allow us to pick a couple of different modes to deal with a lot of problems. And then the Martial Coup, which I really enjoy in a deck like this. It allows us to pay X and white, and then we create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all the other creatures. So if we pay 6 and white, so a total of 8 mana, we make 6 bodies and board wipe everybody else. Great. We're also running Cut a Deal. I don't normally like to give my opponents any kind of advantage, but in this particular situation, we have to make an adjustment for that. So for 2 and a white, we're able to have everybody draw a card, and then we draw a card for everybody that did this turn. In a typical 4-person pod, you make all 3 of your opponents draw a card, and then you get to draw 3 more cards from that. So not bad for a mono white card draw source. Do I like giving everybody that? Oh. But it is what it is. We're in white, we're in a budget. So it's a pretty decent card. I mean, you could trade this out for a couple of really bangers later on if you really wanted to. Finally, one of our really dumb win conditions, in my opinion, is Stormheart. I've really just been impressed by this card. Like, it's 10 mana. My god, if we make it to turn 10 and we have this, oof, somebody's about to die. So, what you do is you pay 10 mana and you play this spell. You're going to create X 1/1 white Pegasus creature tokens with flying, where X is your life total. We're a life gain deck. We hope to have a bunch of life to do this. So, that is like the ideal dream, is to have like 50 plus life or whatever and just Stormheart and just, I mean, even if we died like right after that or hit a board wipe, I mean, me personally, I'd be like, that is an achievement unlocked. Oh yeah, don't care. We're running 8 instances to kind of control the battlefield and our board a little bit. Running, of course, Swords and Path to Exile. Return to Dust deals with artifacts and enchantments. Stroke of Midnight and Generous Gift both can deal with other permanents that are in our way, shall we say. Disenchant is another backup to be able to destroy an artifact or enchantment. You would be amazed how many artifacts and enchantments really cause you a problem. I can think of one right off the top of my head. The Silent Arbiter is a artifact creature that says no more than one creature can attack this turn, and no more than one creature can block each combat. So that kind of like just, that kills our whole vibe. Whole thing's gone. We can make an army, but we're only hitting with one creature. Nope, that's poo-poo. Unstable, the Unbreakable Formation allows us to make our stuff indestructible instant speed, as well as your temple is under attack. But the temple under your attack also has a backup way that we can have us and a target opponent each draw 2 cards if we really, really need to keep digging. Whew. We're almost done, people. So moving down to our artifact section, as you can see, we're running several of the typical pieces you would see in a commander deck per se. So we have Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Belwar Stone, and Thought Vessel. We're also running the Eye of Venka because it's a nice 2-drop, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card and you lose 2 life. But then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, draw a card and you lose 2 life. So it's a nice budget option to be able to draw cards, especially in a deck that is a life gain deck. So we're not really going to miss that life tick too much, but maybe it might matter with the Essence Channeler because it could give it Flying and Vigilance. So it could have a little bit of synergy there. Pretty nice, huh? The Endless Atlas is just another way to draw some cards. It's a nice 2-drop artifact that says tap 2 mana, tap it, draw a card, activate this ability only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. We are mono white. We are not having to worry about like trying to piece together anything in particular. So we should be able to trigger this at some point in the game. I say that because we do run some non-basic lands in the deck to help smooth out some stuff. But in a general rule and a general aspect, we should be able to trigger this. We're also running Marble Diamond, the Acceptance Letter, which we can always sack to draw a card. Arcane Encyclopedia is just a nice 3-drop that we can pay 3 mana and draw a card. Pretty terrible rate, but we're in a budget. We'll make it work. Glimmerlands also will allow us to draw a card if at least one other creature attack and the creature that is equipped with this, which is pretty easy to do because when it enters the battlefield, we get a 2/2 Rebel creature token that is attached to it. Now, I do see that the price is up to $2.43. At the time of the build, this was under $1. It was like 85 cents or something like that. Rather than go through and mess up everything we have here, we're just going to let it chill because, come on, it's going to be okay. These card prices fluctuate all the time. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the beast here. That it is going to be what it is going to be. So it'll be all right. I mean, I could really change it up. I really felt like it, put in like Swiftfoot Booters or something like that. But we're already here, so I'm just going to leave it. But I will use it for this option of what would you, yes you, what would you swap this out for a source of card draw that potentially could be more consistent while still being $1 or less? What would you put in this place? Let me know in the comments below. We also running Tomb of Legends. So when it enters, it has a page counter. And then whenever our commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on the tomb. And then we're able to pay a mana, tap it, remove a page counter from the Tomb of Legends, and draw a card. We're going to be hopefully attacking a lot. So hopefully this thing gets a lot of counters and we're able to consistently draw some cards. Finally, we have the Will of Lost Dreams, which is a 4-drop artifact that whenever you gain life, you may pay X mana, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gain. Then you may draw X cards. So potentially, if we are just gaining 2 or 3 life, we can pay 2 or 3 mana and draw 2 or 3 cards. Pretty sweet. Moving on down to almost the end of our journey here, we are running down into our enchantment package. So I guess we will just start with this one. This is Retreat to Emeria. There's a nice 4-drop enchantment that says, whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, you may choose one. So we can either A, put a 1/1 white core ally creature token onto the battlefield. Pretty sweet. Grow our army wide. Or, creatures you control get a +1/+1 until end of turn. You notice this says creatures. All of them. Gotta like it. We are also running Divine Sacrament. So it is a 3-drop enchantment that says white creatures get +1/+1. Hey, we're mono white. We like this. It also has Threshold. And it says for its threshold cost, white creatures get an additional +1/+1 as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. So if somebody has made us mill, or we've had to discard a bunch, or had a bunch of things die, we're able to get 7 cards in our graveyard, then We like this. That means our creatures get a +2/+2. They're no longer white weenies anymore. They're starting to get a little scary. We also run 2 more Anthem effects with Glorious Anthem and Honor of the Pure, which both give everything a +2, a +1/+1, and total +2/+2. So between these 3 enchantments, our stuff can at least get a +3/+3. Dawn of Hope is a 2-drop that we can get out before our commander. And it says whenever you gain life, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, you get to draw a card. We are a life gain deck. Again, we're going to be able to draw some cards here, hopefully with some extra mana. And then we can pay 3 and a white to make a body. So, gotta like that. Commander's Insignia. So, it is a very sneaky enchantment in this build, in my opinion. So for 2 and a white, it's an enchantment that reads, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. So if somebody keeps killing and killing and killing and killing, we're able to just keep playing and playing and playing and playing our commander. This could get really, really big really, really fast. And this becomes a problem for our opponents to deal with. Then we have Case of the Uneaten Feast. It is a white enchantment case. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. To solve it, you must have gained 5 or more life this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. So that means if we gained 5 life during the turn when this is out, on our end step, we're going to solve this case. So when it's solved, you get to sacrifice this case. Creature cards in your graveyard gain, you may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. So if we can manipulate everything just right, potentially after some horrible major board wipe that hopefully didn't hit enchantments, and nobody has noticed what we're doing over here, we can hopefully gain more than 5 life in turn, and then we're going to be able to sacrifice this on our next turn and be able to play all our stuff again. Finally, we are also, well, it's not finally, we have 1 more to talk about. We're also running Paladin class. So spells your opponent's control during your turn cost 1 more to cast. It is another class enchantment for 1 white mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 if we pay 2 and a white to make it the next level. It still has that first part of text as well. Then for 4 and a white, we can go to the ultimate level of this thing. So whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and double strike. So, I have a couple of big dumb dragons in this deck that if they get left unchecked and we drop this huge bomb, it could be potentially a 1-hit kill with a big enough army on the battlefield. That's a little scary, actually. Finally, we're going to run Path of Bravery. It's a nice 2 and a white enchantment in here. And it reads, as long as your life total is greater than or equal to your starting life total, creatures you control get +1/+1. Again, it goes with our other group of Anthem effects. Pretty good, pretty sweet. And then it says, whenever 1 or more creatures you control attack, you gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures. What? What? Oh, for our opponent. It's another way to back up our commander. So that means between this and the dragon and our commander, every time we attack, we have a way to gain life. We should have quite a bit of life. We are going to be the problem. We are mono white. We are weak on our card draw. Our end game is kind of, we're a little sketchy. We're a little janky. But we should have a whole bunch of life to stay alive. So we do have to be careful of commander damage. That could be a thing. I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it and have our removal ready. Finally, moving on down to our land section, we are running a pretty typical suite with Paramorphic Expanse, Command Tower, even Path of Ancestry, Evolving Wilds, Exotic Orchard, and of course, a Field of Ruin. If you don't know why I run a Field of Ruin in every deck I run, or Ghost Quarter, or anything similar to it, go check out the video I just released and you will understand why. The video I just released is all about the spooky lands that lurk out there in the commands. So there's a reason why I always run one of these. We are also running Castle Ardenvale to be able to make a body. Another way to draw some cards right here is the Arc of Orkaza, Orzaka. Apparently, I can't read. It has Ascend, so if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. So once we have 10 permanents on our battlefield, we are guaranteed to have the city's blessing, and this never goes away. It cannot be taken, it cannot be removed. Once we are ascended, we're ascended. We are given the city's blessing. Um, and it's funny because Ascend, from what I can remember about the mechanic, it like constantly checks this and is like, "Hey, do you have 10 permits? No. Hey, you have 10 permits? No. Hey, you have 10 per Oh, 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 you do? Sweet. There you go." But anyways, the land allows us to tap for 1 mana, or we can pay 5, tap it to draw a card. Very, very steep to pay that price. Again, guys, we're mono white, we're on a budget. Gotta do what we gotta do. And then we're running 26 basic planes. So this is a budget mono white life gain deck. Our mana curve looks pretty good in my opinion. Oh gee, I wonder why we're 76% of all the symbols are white. That's almost like we're a mono white deck. So as you can see, our opening hand looks pretty, pretty fair and balanced. If we do it again, we're able to get some lands. I actually really like this hand a lot. We have a board wipe, couple sources of card draw, though this may only trigger once, same as that, and a piece of removal. So we go 3 turns deep, bam, we have 2 more sources of card draw. Really, really like that hand. I would have kept that hand. Again, I think I would keep this hand if this was our starting 7. We have a couple of lands, source of card draw, some spot removal, a creature, a board wipe, and a way to pump everything. Oh yeah, we would have been just fine. Just fine. I love the sample hands from this. So I don't know if I'm going to do a run through of the deck, but I will kind of go through here on EDHREC's recommendations and just kind of show you some of the things that you can upgrade the deck if you decide to buy this and upgrade it yourself. Oh wow, Soul Warden. Come on, keep coming down. Soul Warden right here is one of the Soul Sisters I was talking about. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Pretty solid card. Daxos, I just couldn't squeeze him into the deck, honestly. We have quite a few effects like this already. I would rather have a Soul Warden versus him in the first place. Knight of the White Orchid, kind of the same thing. It's catch-up lamp. We could always throw a Soul Ring in, technically, but what are you going to do? A Catcher's Monument would be a sweet card to have in here. Not really for the cost reduction on the white spells for our creatures per se, but more or less whenever we cast a creature spell, we make a 1/1 warrior creature token. Pretty sweet. Voice of the Blessed would be really sweet in here, and it's actually under budget thanks to this Innistrad Remastered reprint. So whenever you gain a life, put a 1 counter on this creature. As long as this creature has 4 or more counters, it has Flying and Vigilance, and as long as it has 10 or more counters, it has Indestructible. This could actually pose a potential problem for our opponents. So I could add it. Probably should add it. But I'm going to make you tell me what you would take out for Voice of the Blessed. Leave me a comment. Speaker of the Heavens, again, great card. Would be sweet in this deck. If we could gain more consistently 7 or more life in a turn, we're able to tap this and make a 4/4 angel creature token. Griffin Airy, just another thing where at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life, you make a 2/2 body. The Cleric class is just ridiculous. Would be a great include into the deck, especially because of our Vampire. So if you gain life, you gain that much +1. We don't really care. What we care about is whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So this plus the Soul Sisters and the Legion Duelist would mean you could potentially draw a card more consistently on everybody else's turn. Pearl Medallion would be great to include into the deck because it reduces all your white mana cost spells. Suture Priest, good card. I don't recommend adding it. Don't do it. This right here will get you killed. Its first ability is great for you. It's this last ability that makes you a target. This will not live. This will get you killed. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose one life. Not really sure why you wouldn't normally, but this does get you killed. I've seen a lot of players die from this. Just don't. Just don't. Soul's Attendant is our other soul sister, and it has a similar effect. Whenever the creature enters the battlefield, not just on your control, you may gain one life. Then we're running into things that are pretty basic to see. Keeper of the Accord, Angelic Accord, Sargata Splendor. Um, so we're seeing some other things that are pretty common to see. Philidar Sovereign, sorry, is a nice 6 mana eats a kill spell card. Pretty much what happens. You pay 6 mana for a 4/6 Vigilance life linking cat beast that eats a kill spell because at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. Yeah, it dies. It dies a lot. Because guess what? You start out at 40. You only need to gain a life point just to guarantee it. For probably 85% of the time, 95% of the time, you can guarantee it just by gaining one life. Run a life gain deck. This thing will eat a kill spell. Guarantee it. This was the Aetherflux Reservoir I was talking about earlier. So whenever you cast a spell, you gain one life for each spell you've cast this turn. And then you can pay 50 life and 50 damage anything you want to. Pretty sweet. Menace Tirith would be great for our card draw capability because we are turning sideways as more than one creature. And Myria the Skyrim would be a nice way to keep buying back some of the creatures that die. Fumigate is a nice board wipe to consider for you to destroy all the creatures and gain one life point for each creature destroyed this way, as well as Mass Calcify being able to destroy all non-white creatures. We're a white deck. That would be backbreaking as a one-sided board wipe. Ugh. If it was under budget, it'd be in. No lie, it would be in. One-sided board wipe, get wrecked. Archangel of Flame would be a ridiculous upgrade. So whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. It has flying and lifelink. The Exemplar of Light would be another really great include. So whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on it. And whenever you put a 1/1 counter on this thing, you're able to draw a card only once each turn, but it can be done. Uh, Heliod Suncrown is another great piece to add, but typically he's better at the helm of his own deck where, you can go infinite with Login Ballista. The Gaffer, another great creature to have in this deck, allowing us to draw cards if we gain 3 or more life. Takasha's Welcome would be great in here as well, so whenever one or more creatures, mana value 3 or less, enters the battlefield under our control, draw a card. Only triggers once each turn. Authority of the Consuls would make all your opponent's creatures enter tap and you gain life. Esper Sentinel, again, just a nice, great source of card draw. Adeline, the Resplendent Cathar. This is a powerhouse of a card. So her power is equal to the number of creatures you control. She has vigilance. And then whenever you attack, notice whenever you attack, not just with her, just whenever you attack, each opponent creates a 1/1 white human soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. Some other really big splashy things like Nykthos Shrine to Nyx makes you a whole bunch of white mana equal to your devotion to white. Chroma's Will allows us to do really dumb shenanigans if our commander's out. Sarah's Ascendant, man, I wish they'd reprint this thing another time or two. Come on down. So this is like a kill on sight card in anything that is life gain or anything that plays white. Just because as long as you have 30 or more life, it has plus life, plus 5, and has flying. It also already has lifelink. So for 1 mana on turn 1, you could play this and have a 6/6 flying life-linking creature. Oh, crap. Then you have, Pristine Talisman. You can always tap to gain a life anytime you need to. Smothering Tithe allows people to not pay taxes and draw cards. Fireman Commando, a great angel to allow us to draw cards. Resplendent Angel, another powerful angel that allows us to make bodies. The Book of Exalted Deeds, if you put in the land, is ridiculous. So at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, make a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. Well, then you can pay white, 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 and tap this. Exile the Book of Exalted Deeds. Put an alignment counter on target angel. It gains. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. You can only do it as a sorcery. So in a previous video I talked about how this combos with the Faceless Haven, if I remember correctly, which allows it to become a changeling creature. So you can play that, do this effect. It counts as an angel. It gets the counter, and then you can never lose. It's ridiculous. It was banned in standard. So then we keep going down. I mean, Teferi's Protection is always a great card. Righteous Valkyrie. Whenever another angel or cleric you control enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness, and as long as you have 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get a +2/+2. So it's another nice big anthem effect. This is a new one from the Ixalan Commander that is finally going down in price a little bit, but it's Alenda's Hierophant. It has a flying, and whenever you gain life, put a 1 counter on it. Then whenever this thing dies, you make X roll on white vampire creature tokens with lifelink for X's and power. Angel of Destiny could be another win condition. The Valkyrie Harbinger, whenever you gain 4 more life in a turn, at the beginning of that end step, you make a 4/4 body. Flawless Maneuvers, great way to protect your stuff. True Conviction gives everything double strike and lifelink. Thorn of Eldraine is just a really big, dumb, powerful mana rock. Lifeline of Hope. Whenever you gain life, gain that much life +1, and as long as you have 7 more than your starting life total, your creatures get huge. Skull Clamp, probably not a good card in this deck because a lot of our stuff is hopefully going to be pumped and huge. The Enduring Innocence would be a nice source of card draw. Pardon me. The Halo Fountain would be a nice backup win condition. So if you pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 white mana, tap it, and untap up to 15 tapped creatures you control, you instantly win the game. Cathar's Crusade is typically seen as a go-to white card in builds like this. I strongly recommend you do not, because it is a headache nightmare trying to keep track of who all entered when, and just you make your army really, really big, really, really quick, but man, is it a headache. Miganjo is just a nice land to be able to, snipe some stuff here and there. Manatite would be funny, really considering it. If you counter target spell unless the controller pays 1, you would be amazed. You could catch somebody. Dad of Souls is kind of like another Soul Sister effect, but it only works upon creatures entering our battlefield. The Arok Champion is kind of like another Soul Sister. And finally, we have the Moonshaker Cavalry, which is just... It's white Cradle Hoof. Let's be real, people. It's a white Cradle Hoof. Instead of giving everything trample and, being fair. No. We're going to give everything flying and a +X, where X is the number of creatures we control. We are a white weenie life gaining deck. This thing would be an absolute backbreaker. Just ouch. So those are some of the cards you could potentially swap into this deck to up the budget and up the power level of this, and maybe even up the synergy of the overall build. So with that said, let me know in the comments what you would swap out. How high would you boost the budget for this deck? Would you go $100, $150, $250, or would you just like to see this thing go ramped out to the max? I'm curious. Let me know what you think. So with that, I think I will bring this video to a close, and I would like for you to, again, please remember, like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to, ring that bell, and of course, rub that belly for mana. I've been your Buddha Dragon. and I'll catch you in the next one.